Welcome YouTube family. How are you today? Welcome to my channel, Learn Arabic with Dr. Elnoor. Today I have a new video and that video is about the Hamza that we talked about. The Hamza in my first video that I uploaded with reference to the alphabet. I mentioned that some people consider Hamza as one of the Arabic letters, and if that's the case, the Arabic letters are 29 letters. Some people disagree with that and say the Hamza is not a letter. Therefore, the Arabic letters are only 28. So each group has different opinions on this one. Those who say the Hamza is a letter, they rely on the Hamza being like has a different sound. The Hamza accept the diacritics, and the diacritics here are the short vowels like the fatha, the dhamma, and the kasra. And the sound of the Hamza is a, like one of your kids or your friends say oh oh. See, that's the glottal sound oh. So that's the Hamza. So you can say a, that's Hamza with the fatha, I, Hamza with the kasra, U, Hamza with the dhamma. So those people say, well, yeah, the Hamza is one of the letters because it does accept all these short vowels. And also the Hamza, could stand independently in the middle and at the end of a word. So these are the argument. Other people or the other side of the school argue that, well, the other side argues that the Hamza is not a letter as it, sits on the long vowel Alif and also it sits on the long vowel Waw and the long vowel Ya. So since this is the case, the Hamza is not an independent letter. So let's discover the Hamza today together. And with that being said, let's kick this off right now. This is the Hamza that we are talking about. See this in red? This is the Hamza. And as I said, the sound, or when we pronounce the Hamza, we say and the Hamza function as a consonant, not as a vowel or a long vowel. If it has that sound, the sound comes from the back of the throat and it's a glottal stop. Uh, uh, not short. And the closest example is uh-oh for those who speak English. Some people say that a lot. Uh-oh. So the first syllable, that's the sound of the Hamza. So the Hamza sits, we have three different seats or three different chairs that we sit the Hamza on these chairs or on them. The first one, the Hamza sits on the long vowel Alif, and also it does sit on the long vowel Wa, and it sits on the long vowel Ya, and the Hamza can stand alone, like or can sit independently in the middle of the word or at the end of the word, never at the beginning. So at the beginning of the word, the Hamza has to sit has to sit on the Alif at the beginning. When you start with the Hamza, Alif must be there in order to start that word. The Hamza will never sit on the Waw or on the Ya at the beginning of the word. When you start with a word, the Hamza cannot sit on the Waw, neither nor sorry on the Ya, but always sits on the Alif at the beginning. And with with that being said, let's discover today is only we are going to talk about the Hamza sitting on the long vowel Alif only for today because the Hamza is kind of long and it needs a lot of explanation. So that's why I divided up the video into three different segments. So we can talk about the Hamza in different segments. The first segment is Hamza sitting on the Alif, and the second segment will be the Hamza sitting on the Waw and the Ya, and the third and last one will be the Hamza that standing alone or when the Hamza is independently alone with no seat or with no chair. So let's figure that out today. And in order to find a seat, because we have three different seats, we have the long vowel alif, the long vowel waw, and the long vowel ya. In order to determine the proper seat for the hamza, you need to remember or to memorize these diacritics or these three short vowels and the sukun. See the kasra, and the kasra is this here underneath the ba. This is the kasra, and the kasra is the strongest, the strongest. So the kasra dictates the seeding, you know. And also we have the second strongest, and that is the dhamma. And here's the dhamma. So the dhamma is the second strongest, and the third strongest is the fatha, and last one or the weakest is the sukun. And the sukun is just looks like this o, but it's a tiny o. We put it on top of a letter. That's the sukun. So the sukun is the weakest one. So if you have the kasra so since we said the kasra is the strongest, in determining the seeding or the seed for the hamza, we need to look at two things. We need to look at the hamza itself and the letter that precedes it. So in this case, the letter that precedes the hamza is the letter ba, and the letter ba has the kasra here. And we said the kasra is the strongest. So that means the kasra gives you the ya, and the hamza in this case must be seated on the ya, because the previous one has the kasra, and the hamza itself, here's the hamza, has the fatha. So the kasra is stronger than the fatha. The kasra dictates the seeding, which is the ya. And the ya, we don't put the dots here. When we see a hamza on top of the ya, we do not put the two dots of the ya. And also see here how we determine the seeding, the proper seeding for the hamza here. So we have our hamza here, and we have the letter that precedes the hamza. So all we care about is these two, the hamza and the letter that precedes it. So this one is the letter sin. The sin has the dhamma, and the hamza has the fatha. And we say that the dhamma is stronger than the fatha, because the dhamma is the second stronger, means the fatha is weaker than the dhamma. So the dhamma dictates the seeding. The dhamma dictates the proper seeding, and the dhamma brings us the wow as a seed for the hamza. Su'al, su'al. Su'al is question. Bi'r here, bi'r is the well that we, get water out of it. So people like in some places go to the well and take water out of the well. So that's they call it bi'r. Okay, let's see sa'ala. So sa'ala is to ask, and we take a look at the dhamma, the hamza here, and the letter that precedes the hamza. The letter that precedes the hamza here is the sin, the letter sin, and the sin has the fatha, and the hamza has the fatha. So the fatha brings you the alif as a seat for the hamza. So that's why we seated our hamza here on the letter alif, the long vowel alif. So to recap, the fatha gives you the alif as a seat for the hamza. The wow, the dhamma gives you the wow as a seat, and the kasra gives you the ya as a seat for the hamza. And we need to remember these in order. Strongest, kasra, dhamma, fatha, sukun. So sukun has no influence here, but later on in segment number 2, we will see the effect of the sukun in determining the seeding for the hamza. So I cannot stress enough to know these: the kasra, the dhamma, the fatha, the sukun, from the strongest to the weakest. So this is how we determine the seeding for the hamza. Moving on. So as I said, today the focus is only on the hamza seeding on the alif. That's it. Only for today. So let's see the hamza when the hamza falls the beginning of the word, like in these examples. See the hamza here at the beginning, the beginning, at the beginning, the beginning. So let's see the rules for this one. So the rule for this one is pretty simple. When the hamza has the fatha, and the Hamza falls at the beginning, or you start your word with the Hamza, as in this one. So a, so you put the Hamza and you put the Fatha on top of the Hamza. Ana, ana, ana is I am or I. Aktub, aktub. So we put the Hamza on the Alif and we put the Fatha. Aktub, aktubu. Aktub is I write, like to write something. Adrus, so darasa is to study. Adrus is I study or I am studying. So adrus, so the alif, the hamza had the fatha and the seeding is alif. And as I said, when you start a word with the hamza, the alif is always the seeding. We will never seed the hamza on the waw or on the ya or independently at the beginning, unless there are a few examples that in the Holy Quran, so you can see the hamza in different positions. But the general rule is the hamza only at the beginning sits on the alif. If the hamza had the fatha, we put the hamza and then the alif on top of the hamza. Adrus, akh is brother. Also, we seated the hamza and then we put the fatha. Amal is hope, and also it's a female name. We put it the hamza and then we put the fatha on top of the hamza. Asad is lion, the African lion. So we put the hamza and then we put the fatha on top of the hamza. So this is when the hamza had the fatha, and when the hamza had the kasra, like ibn, i. So here we say a, here we say i, because the hamza has the kasra. So we have the seeding, and always the beginning is the alif, and then we put the hamza underneath the alif, and also we put the kasra underneath the hamza. Ibn, and ibn is son, like your son, my son, somebody else's son. Ibrahim. So also the hamza has the kasra, so we place the hamza underneath the alif and the kasra underneath the hamza. Ibrahim, Abraham. Ida is if condition. Also the hamza has the kasra, that's why we place it here. Ikhwat is sisters. Also the hamza here has the kasra, and then we put the kasra underneath the hamza, and the seeding, even though it's not the seeding anymore, but has to be there. The alif has to be here, because the seeding is the hamza on the top, that's the seeding. But we kind of flipped the seeding. But anyway, the alif must be here for the hamza, because always the alif supports the hamza at the beginning. Ism is noun, and I mean grammatical noun, and also ism means name, like my name, ismi, ismuk, your name. So the hamza has the kasra, and we put the alif here. So let's see when the hamza has the dhamma. See the little wow here, that's the dhamma. um um is mother. So the hamza will be placed on top of the alif, and the dhamma is on top of the hamza. Totally opposite to when the hamza has the kasra. We place everything underneath the alif, here above or on top of the alif. Mother. Uhibbu, I like or I love. Also because the alif, the hamza has the dhamma, that's why we place the hamza and then we put the dhamma. Uruba, that's the cabinet, is Europe. Uruba. Uruba. Australia, I think you can figure that out. Australia is Australia. Also, the hamza has the dhamma. We place the hamza on top of the alif, and then we put the dhamma on top of the hamza. Australia. Uhud. Uhud is a mountain in Saudi Arabia, so that's why the alif or the hamza has the dhamma. That's why we put the hamza on top of the alif and the dhamma. Uhud. Ustad. Ustad is a professor or teacher. Ustad. Yeah. So these are the rules of the hamza. When the hamza is at the beginning, to recap quickly, hamza had the fatha, the kasra, the dhamma, and we always have alif here to support. We place the hamza and the diacritic, the fatha and the dhamma on top of the alif, and we place the diacritic in the top of the hamza. In terms of The kasra, we place the dhamma underneath the alif, even though the alif here is as a seed, but we place it underneath and put the kasra underneath the hamza. So that is with reference to the hamza sitting on the long vowel alif. Moving on. So let's see the second situation where the hamza is in the middle of the word. So like in these examples, we have ta'rikh. So the hamza here, that's why we hear the sound a ta'rikh. If the hamza is not here, we would say tarikh. That would be a long vowel. But when the hamza sits on the long vowel is not a long vowel anymore. As in this example, we do not say tarikh, but we say ta'rikh, ta, because the hamza is kind of shorten it, ta'rikh. And how we determine the seating here? You need to go back and remember the rule that I told you about, and you need to memorize that by heart. The kasra is the strongest, the dhamma is the second, the fatha is the third strongest, and the sukun is the weakest. So we take a look only, we focus on two things. The first one is the hamza itself and the letter that precedes the hamza. And in this case is the letter ta. So see, the letter ta has the short vowel fatha, or the diacritic fatha, and the hamza had the fatha. So that's why the fatha brings you the alif to be as a seed, to be seeded, to be a seed for the hamza. Tarikh. That's how we determine the seeding for the hamza is alif, because of the fatha. Okay, and tarikh is history. Also could be like the date, today's date, tarikh al-yawm. Okay, moving. Sa'ala. Sa'ala is to ask, and we seeded the hamza on the alif because the hamza has the fatha and the letter sin has the fatha. So the fatha, two fatha, bring you the seeding, the alif, for as a chair for the hamza to be sit on. Sa'ala. Ras. So ras is head, ras. And we look at the hamza and the letter that precedes. And the letter that precedes is the letter ra. And the letter ra has the fatha, and the hamza has the sukun. And we said that the fatha is stronger than the sukun. Then the fatha dictates the alif. So that's why the hamza is seated on the alif, because of the fatha being stronger than the sukun. Ras is head. Imra'a. Imra'a is woman, or a woman. Imra'a. Here we look at the hamza and the letter that precedes, and these two letters have the fatha. So that's why the fatha brings you the alif for the seeding, or as a seed for the hamza. Imra'a. Tha'ar. So tha'ar or tha'ara. Tha'ar is revenge. So we have tha. And by the way, the hamza here has the sukun, but the the fatha is stronger than the sukun, so that's why the fatha dictates the alif as a seed for the hamza. Ra'a, ra'a is to see. Also, ra'a, the hamza has the sukun, and the letter ra has the fatha, and the fatha is stronger than the sukun. The fatha brings you the alif as a seed for the hamza. Ra'a. Mas'ala. Mas'ala. We take a look here at the hamza, and the hamza has the fatha, and the letter that precedes has the sukun. And we say the fatha is stronger than the sukun, so the fatha dictates the seeding, which is the alif. Okay, I think we are clear about how to determine the seed or the seeding for the hamza, and we only talking about the long vowel alif. And we said when the long vowel alif is used as a seed, it is no longer a long vowel. So the effect of the hamza. So let's look at the final thing here is when the hamza falls at the end, or at the end of a word. Hanna'a, hanna'a is to congratulate. So the Hamza has the sukun here, and the previous one has the fatha. The fatha is stronger than the sukun, so the fatha dictates the seeding, which is the alif. Naba, naba is like news. The ba has the fatha, and the Hamza has the sukun. The sukun is weaker than the fatha, so then the stronger determines the seeding, which is in this case the alif, because the fatha gives you the alif. Here we kind of like survival of the fittest. The stronger survives. The stronger survives in determining the seed or the chair for the hamza to be seated on. Mala'a is to fill, like to fill something with water or with something. Mala'a. So the hamza has the fatha, and the lam has the fatha. So the fatha gives you the alif for as a seed. That's why the hamza is seated on the alif here. Bada'a, bada'a is to start. So the letter dal has the fatha, and the letter the hamza. I wouldn't say the letter hamza because like there's a disagreement between the two schools. But the hamza has the fatha. So both have the fatha, and the fatha gives you the alif as a seed for the hamza. Qara'a is to read. Also fatha. See the alif as a seed for the hamza. Laja'a is to resort. And we see the jim has the fatha, and the hamza here has sukun. I didn't put the sukun, but the sukun is weaker than the fatha. So the fatha determines which seed, and in this case is alif. So to conclude, the fatha, if the fatha is the strongest, the fatha gives you the alif as a seed for the hamza. If you have a dhamma and the dhamma is the strongest, the dhamma gives you the wow, the letter wow as a seed for the hamza. And if there's a kasra, the kasra is always the strongest. So when you have the kasra on the hamza or the previous letter, you just go ahead and put the ya as a seed because the kasra is the strongest one. So all right, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. I know the hamza is kind of challenging a little bit, but at the same time, it's manageable and it's doable. A lot of people trip on writing their hamzas, me included in that regard. Sometimes I need to consult with my dictionary, but nothing wrong with that. So the hamza is kind of the more challenging letter. If the hamza is one of the letters, it's pretty challenging. So I want you to follow on this one, and the next segment or next video I will be talking about the hamza seating on the waw and the ya. In the last video I will be talking about the hamza sitting like standalone or independently. Thank you so much. مع السلامة يا شباب. أراكم في الفيديو القادم. I'll see you in the next video. Once again, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Share the video and also like it so you will get more uploads as I upload them. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye. Peace.